when we start sparking into what it is we really desire, what we really want to experience in the works we do and the, other areas of life, all of a sudden we start opening that up and we start seeing that coming to fruition. There's always enough time for everything we want to do.
Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more month than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident.
Good day, and welcome to Give a Heck. On today's show, I welcome Joseph Drolshagen, featured in Fox, CBS, and NBC, along with being named Top Business Coach in America for 4 consecutive years in the NYC Journal and Disruptors magazine. Joseph is known for helping small business owners, professional salespeople, and entrepreneurs to rapidly accelerate their business growth while gaining more life freedom through alignment of the subconscious mindset programming to achieve total mindset alignment. Until recently, Joseph was the best kept secret in the avenue of rapid business growth and scaling businesses to unprecedented levels, and doing so at a fraction of the investment of so many business development programs available out there. Aside from a very successful 28-year career, up to VP of Sales, Joseph has spent over 3 decades studying, implementing, and developing what's now known as the SMT Method, Subconscious Mindset Training, which has repeatedly allowed hundreds of people to create the life they desire through reprogramming their subconscious conditioning to become unstoppable. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Joseph. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share with us some of your life journey.
Absolutely. It's great to be here with you. Even the conversation we had before we started recording is awesome.
Yeah, it's always good to talk with people. Those that have been listening to the show for a long time, I like hockey, right? I bleed hockey because of the fact that I like organized sports, and still today, whether Joseph would agree or not, I've watched all the sports. The most physically punishing, active, deadly sport today is still hockey, right? And anybody that disagrees,
my whole life.
Yeah, anybody that disagrees, just go Google about that poor guy that got killed last year with a skate to the neck, right?
Yeah.
There are people skating around on razor blades. Come on. It's a dangerous sport, but I love it. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
I love it. Those listening, we were talking, how many of you out there send me a message actually like fights in hockey? I'm not going to say whether or not I like them or not, but what's your take on hockey and fighting? And we're going to get on with our conversation after
All
that.
right.
But
I'm interested to hear what comes back on those comments.
Yes, that would be cool. I'll share it with you. We'll see if anybody has the courage to get into a healthy banter, right? A debate about whether or not fighting should be in hockey. Anyway, yeah. Joseph, one of the things that I focus on and I find is the biggest passionate thing that I've fallen in love with my podcast is a person's origin story, not just the fluff of you becoming a young man and you did all this great accomplishments. I love getting to know, like, and trust my guests as well as my listeners and people watching on YouTube. I love to get to know the guests as well. And the more vulnerable we are and the more we share our earliest recollections, and they don't have to be bad. Everybody says, well, I don't have anything bad. Great. Let's share the good stuff. What happened when you were 4 or 5 that you think changed the trajectory of your life, right? Good or bad or ugly. I'd appreciate it. It can be as long as you'd like it to be. share what you'd
Yeah,
like, and we can talk throughout it as well. If there's extra questions and stuff, I forgot to let you know, I take notes, so I'll take bullet point notes of stuff that I like about whatever you talk about, because sometimes I like diving just a little bit deeper. So do me
absolutely.
a favor.
Yeah.
Tell me your origin story, brother, from your earliest
Yeah.
recollections to now.
Yeah. So I grew up one of five children. Um, my mom and dad stayed married till death did them part and stuff. And I, I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, and in a very low income blue collar family. And so I remember even from an early age watching like my parents struggle and work as many hours as they could. I didn't comprehend it all at the time, but I remember them working. I remember my dad having to miss like our baseball games and stuff like that because he had an opportunity for overtime. And whenever he did, he took it. And my mom was a court reporter. So she would work like from the time we went to bed until we got up in the morning and got off to get us off to school. And then she'd sleep for a while and then get up and so I, I remember at 9 years old, I went and spent a weekend with a friend of mine. And his dad gave us $20. And he goes, "You guys take your bikes, go down to Dairy Queen and get ice cream." Now, in my family, Dwight, we had to save up. I mean, there were five kids, but we had to save up in order to do, my parents would have to do stuff like that, and I watched my dad in my, like a couple years after that, I started watching him go through back surgery after back surgery and hip and everything just from beating himself up so badly doing manual labor as many hours as he could. So when I came home from that friend's house, there's just a difference in energy in the house. And I didn't know what it was, but I said, "Man, you people aren't living right," like my parents, as a young kid. But at 9 years old to have that insight like that, and I just thought, I'm not gonna live like you guys do. And so I went forward through my teen years, and I grew up a chubby kid and wearing tough skin jeans and stuff, and embarrassed by that. And I was really embarrassed to be who I was really growing up. I was embarrassed the way it was in our family and stuff, and I was just embarrassed about me, and being chubby and this and that and stuff. And so I went through my teen years with that and got through school, and it wasn't easy a thing for me to do. And there were some night classes involved in order to do it because I just didn't really care about that stuff. And I found myself at 22 years old, and I run up against these things, and something would just like an opportunity would just kind of show up, and it would start unfolding. And something inside of me felt like, man, I didn't work hard enough for this, so I don't deserve it. And somehow I push that, and I would not ever reap the benefits of those opportunities like that, and I struggled the same ways financially, regardless of what I owned, how my income was and stuff. And I was working full time, and I had a business, and I did all this stuff and everything. And then and so I became a student because I knew there was something broken in me, but I didn't know what it was. you know I went through later in my 20s. I got married in my early 20s, and because I was conditioned that a man gets a family, supports a family, and then hopefully gets a career, gets a family, and hopefully lives long enough that he can enjoy some life in retirement. And that's how I was conditioned. And so I bought into it hook, line, and sinker. I started out blue collar, 18, 19, and then I ended up getting into white collar. My first position was at General Motors and stuff, and I didn't have a degree at that time and stuff. But later on, like in my 20s, in my mid 20s, I ended up going outside of GM because I didn't like, I see all these people that are like, engineers, and they just go their entire career doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over. And I thought that was boring. So I went outside and started working for suppliers. And that's when I got into sales. And so when I was in my probably 27, we had two, I was married at the time, we had two pregnancies, and babies were born at like 24, 25 weeks, and they'd live for hours on all the equipment and machines and everything, and then they would pass away. And then we had a third pregnancy that was my son, and he was born healthy. And then we experienced two more pregnancies like the first two. So when I say my son is like a miracle in my life, and I'm so blessed, and like I mean that, like I mean, not that that matters, the other things happen, because everybody who has children thinks that way, but like he was like a special gift from God in my life. So I'm going forward in sales. I'm doing everything I can. I'm still living in that, if you want something, you got to take massive actions, exhaustive efforts. And I was traveling 3,000 to 5,000 miles a week trying to build territories and stuff. And I would add maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars of revenue to organizations, so I wasn't really having, I always felt like I'm supposed to shine, but I couldn't get beyond that middle pack area. And even the people that were in the middle pack, they didn't seem like they traveled near as much as I did, or things like that. And at 31 and 32 years old, no, I'm sorry, because I was 28, so 29 years old, my son has his first birthday. Now, I told you how special he is to me. And instead of being home celebrating that, I was in Indiana trying to build a sales territory, because I thought that's what a man's supposed to do. And I'll tell you, I spent that day in tears, a lot of it, as I drove from work, company to company, calling on him and stuff like that. And even today, as I'm telling you this, Dwight, like, I can never go back and get that moment back again. And so that was another upset. As I went forward, I started leaning more into this, and now continuously through that time, I started going to counseling, and then I started checking out things like The Secret when it came out and things like that. And then I started going into like coaching programs, and every one of them I'd go through, and I would understand what they were talking about and stuff, but I walked away from every one of those thinking, man, there must be something the matter with me, because they promise you all these results you're going to get and everything else. I didn't get nothing near that. I didn't do any better than before I took the program, other than having a little more understanding. So, and I I continued that pathway of looking for ways to fix me, is what the way I looked at it, And then as I went forward, and I told you, like, in my sales position, I was no big deal with what I was doing. I was killing myself, exhausting myself, traveling, and then trying to do a business to make enough money that I would be satisfied and stuff. And none of that was worked out. And then I started understanding the total mindset, where we have a conscious mind, which is what we focus on, the words we use, who we talk to, all that stuff. But also, what we want comes from the conscious mind. Our knowing of what we want is coming from that conscious mind, okay? And then once I tapped into starting to understand the subconscious mind, so they work individually, but combined as well. So all the subconscious mind does is absorbs whatever's in the conscious mind, okay? But all of our patterns, our paradigms, our beliefs, our conditioning, all of that we've ever been through in life is in that, what I call motherboard, in that subconscious mind. Also within that subconscious mind is the doing part of what we want. So our conscious mind has the knowing, that motherboard is what triggers our brain waves to the actions we take or we don't take. So coming from struggle the way I did, if something came, it would make sense that that's in my conditioning. So when something did come along, an easier pathway, of course I would reject it and not take the actions into it to see it through, because it didn't fit my conditioning. Once I understand that, it's like things just exploded. And to the point of going, I told you, maybe adding hundreds of thousands of dollars to organizations, to getting multi-year 18, 20, $25 million contracts, taking companies from 50 to 75 million in just one contract like that. And, the avenues started showing up easier. The travel, like, all of a sudden, everything started happening differently. My personal life started, instead of it being like that hustle to try to keep it going, it became enjoyable, which took a while to be comfortable with. Because if there wasn't drama going on, it felt like things aren't working right, always waiting for the second shoe to drop and things like that and stuff. And so as I started doing this stuff, I started understanding, I started seeing changes in my life. And now I'm in my 40s, and I'm starting to see this stuff happening. And I'm like, man, I wanted, like, I knew that was my mission. That was, like seeing my parents struggle the way they did, and then the thing with missing my son's time, like I just have it in my heart. I don't ever want to, like it makes me want to cry when I hear people talk about those things like that. When I meet somebody and they're just beating themselves up health wise, relationship wise, across the board, just trying to get enough so they're not struggling financially, to be building some kind of a retirement and things like that. And so I started leaning more and more into that. I started in my mid 40s getting certified in different avenues, all related to the subconscious mind, and taking more education and continuing that and stuff. And then it's got to be over a decade ago, my dad passed away. It's getting like 15 years ago now. My dad passed away. And my mom just didn't want to be alive without him. So a little over a year later, she passed away. And I was working now I'm a vice president of sales for an organization, and I'm building sales teams and having an impact that way and stuff at the larger level. And I started helping companies in bankruptcy get back to profitability, which is really, I laugh, but it's really the reason for every gray hair I have, because that's such a tough life when you go home on Friday and you can't do anything till Monday, and you're cutting your staff and like all this stuff with it and stuff. But so here I am. My dad passed, my mom passed. Now I feel like I'm an orphan, and I'm still doing this work that I didn't want to do. The only reason I followed that pathway was because it followed into that programming that a man gets a job, supports a family, and hopefully lives long enough to enjoy retirement. Now, I needed to go through that in order to do what I do today, but I didn't enjoy it. And so as I'm doing that things, and I'm like, okay, now I'm alone and I'm still following this pathway. And I waited until we found new owners to come in, dump $12 million in the organization and take it from a 3-day-a-month operation to a 5-day-a-week operation. And I said, I resign. I'm done. In doing that, I moved down here to South Carolina and I started up IFGT Coaching Consulting, which is what I do today. And I've been doing it for over a decade now. I've helped hundreds and hundreds of people to change around what their results are that they're achieving in life for their efforts. And I just feel like I'm so freaking blessed that I get to do this, and on fire for it. Now, just to follow that up, my son lives up in Michigan, but we talk on the phone at least once every day, and I have such a close relationship with him. And there came a point when I didn't have to miss those things. And that's one of the things I love is when I meet somebody and I talk to them about working with them and stuff like that. And we get into the core of it and they talk about what they're missing and stuff like that. And then I'm able to, like, I feel that for them. Like I know that pain, and not just when it happens, but even it's been 3 decades since that happened. I still feel the pain of missing that in his life, not that he would have known it all, but the gift in his 1 year was for me. And I missed that because of work stuff. So that kind of the pathway.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of similarities, commonalities that I can writing notes down here and listening to your story. What obviously your son's a complete blessing, and we'll touch on what you just said. I have those triggers about things that happen in my life that I've long passed, right? From losing people in my life to being a workaholic when I first started. It's all pattern learned behavior. And I watched my dad, who was one of 18 kids, run a very successful business in a small farming community an hour from the capital city of Edmonton. And he was one of 18 kids. And what was the programming for him when he was born in 41? Well, his programming was that we just went through the Depression. You got to work hard. You got to have a lot of kids. You got to have your own workforce. You got to work, work, work. There was no such thing of any form of life balance, which we're going to talk about later. I've got that that I want to talk about that with you. And so growing up, my dad wasn't at sporting events. He wasn't there. My mom was the one that was taking me, helped me when I was little, tie my skates. Like we talked about hockey, and she was the one taking me to the ball, right? When I played baseball for a while, and because my dad's programming was so strong And I know now, and fast forward, he's in his 80s, he's still alive. He has regrets. He may not verbalize those regrets or talk about them, but I know from other people that he does, because you can't get that time back. So you talk about your missing your son's first birthday, and he may not realize it, et cetera, et cetera, but it's ingrained in you. And no matter what you do, no matter how much you forgive yourself, I could see when you talked about it. I could see, for those watching on YouTube, you know what I'm talking about. Joseph's body language, you could see it, right? It's still a triggering effect for you, but I'm here to tell you that, the biggest positive out of all of that is that you changed, you adapted, you learned. And that's the biggest thing I find that people don't do. They don't pat themselves on the back to say, you know what, this is what I was, and this is who I am today. I can't change this. What did I learn from it? And you learned a lot. Like, we're not going to go over everything you mentioned, but you learned a lot. Every single time that you were talking, you may have been in a specific situation, but you climbed out of it, and you continue to climb out of it. And even in my late 50s, I fall backwards once in a while, and I have to readjust and think to myself, what is controlling me? Is it learned behavior from the programming of my dad? Am I slipping back into being that workaholic? Am I going to be that person that's not checked in? I got to a point, it would have been about, it was in the early 2000s when my kids, they're all adults now. And I literally said, I'm never working the summers again. My kids, right? Because I was divorced, had custody of my joint custody of my kids, and eventually I got full-time custody raising them when they were younger. And I literally would still, I don't want people to think I didn't care about my clientele, my customers. I didn't take any new work on. So I'd only deal with things that come up. And that's what I've been doing this summer, again, because I want to spend time with my grandkids and my adult kids. Because at the end of the day, how many people do you know, Joseph, that aren't even around that are the same age as you or younger?
Yeah. Yeah.
We can't get that back. And people devalue the power of that memory, that you don't know if you're going to create another memory with that individual or family or even a friend ever again. So I always tell people, your learned behavior of being a work, and you got to do this. Like you said, you'd be out and about, and you were in Indiana, I think you said it was, and because you were programmed to do things a certain way. The reason I want to talk about this even more is most people just don't understand there's people like you, or even myself. I do a lot of life coaching with people that can help you discover what your triggers are. Discover the fact that, The Secret, for an example, I wrote down here. I'm not a big fan of The Secret. And it's not because there's not good information there. Without action, without goal setting, without an actual process put in place, The Secret is a joke. And I get people that get pissed off at me. Oh, The Secret did. Okay, tell me what it did for you. And it taught me this. Okay, so where did it take you?
Where did it
And
change?
I don't, what changed in your life? What actions did you take from The Secret? The Secret is simply a great philosophy, a great thought process, but it's one step in the journey of you taking charge of your life, living with intent and a purposeful life, right? In my opinion.
And you're hitting a hot spot for me, and it's exactly, I think, like why it was so strong within me to develop the SMT method, is because, like, The Secret, man, I bought the VHS because I'm that old. I bought the book, and then I even found a study guide thing, and I dove into that thing for a year. When I watched it and then read it and stuff like that, it was like, yeah, this is it, and that's how I'd go about things. Like, this is it, and I'd have full belief in it, and I'd go and I'm looking, and exactly what you said, I learned a lot. It was exciting, and I doing it, and I'm going, nothing's changing. And a lot of the coaching programs I went through, I told you, I walked away from them thinking, man, there must be something the matter with me. And then what I realized as I started understanding this stuff, and like, the SMT method started coming through me and stuff like that, what I realized is why I didn't get anything out of those. The Secret's great. Where it falls short is that, and so many coaching programs and stuff are a one size fit all.
Oh, then they don't.
I got $1 million, so you can get $1 million and just take these actions. But we're all unique individuals, and if you take the same actions I do, we're not going to get the same results. So it was really important for me in the SMT is I don't want to knock anything, but you know how we have these things you see on social media and says, we got your roadmap to success. You know, they don't even know
Yeah.
who I am.
You'll
Got my
make
road.
50,000 within 90 days. You'll be making 50,000 a month or
Yes.
whatever.
Yes.
Like,
And
yeah.
what it is somebody experienced that. They really did. And now they track exactly what they did, and then they tell people, okay, here's what you're going to do. But none of us receive the same results because we're unique individuals. We have unique desires. We have unique um like our conditioning is unique and things like that. And when I say unique in conditioning, I have 4 siblings. When we talk about the stories and the things that happened growing up, there's 5 different stories there over the same
Yeah,
situation. And so that
absolutely.
explains it. And so the SMT, what I've done, I believe, through God, I get is when I developed that, it wasn't developing the action plan of the steps you take. It was laying out the pathway for every individual to have their unique experience based on their desires, based on their conditioning, based on their upsets, based on, and bring that. So when I get done working with somebody, they have a pathway now that they can apply to any area of life. And I think that's where like the secret and stuff falls short. So taking what I know today, I can reference the sequence as a good thing and help to understand the principle, but then help that person apply it to their uniqueness.
Well, you're a person that, if you think of people listening, you think of a monopoly board. You start, that would be the secret. The secret would be to start and might get you through a few of the positions around the board, but it's not going to get you to the end because there's not enough. Again, I've experienced the secret. I just
Yeah.
think it falls short. So I'm not, people can call me knocking it down. I'm saying it's inadequate.
For you, yeah.
It's not that it doesn't have value. It is inadequate. And there's so many different inadequacies in regards to the secret, but secret isn't the only one. All you people out there that are Tony Robbins fans, and you go to his events or you go to anybody like Stephen Covey, you look at his stuff, it doesn't matter what it is, you read these books, you go to these conferences, yet you have nobody after the fact actually mentoring and coaching you that's taking you to the next spot on the board so you can actually get around the game board of life and get to the finish, which, like you mentioned earlier, is good retirement, enjoying life, and be healthy enough and still able to do things. So those programs are all great. They all have good places in people's lives. They can give people something they maybe never ever had, and that's hope and a faith that they can have more, but they just don't do enough. So for me, all I see it is putting families, because I know when I, as a finance person, I see people that drink the Kool-Aid, go to all this stuff, 5, 10, $15,000 in debt on their credit cards. And so they have that feel good effect of going to that event, that Tony Robbins event, and jumping up and down for 5 days, and they're going to change their life. They come back and initially that energy's still there. Then they see their credit card bill and they know they don't have that quite enough income, and then they got to pay that. So those people that do that stuff, they don't see the spiral effect of over, I'd have to say it's in the high 90% of the people that leave those events, the thousands of people that go, that don't get anything out of it. And I'm not picking on Tony, because there's tons
No,
of
but
other
I
people
mean,
out there. You get what I'm saying?
Dwight,
It
even when
frustrates
I'm
me.
doing a workshop, I'll tell people, you probably feel motivated, inspired, excited right now and stuff after hearing this stuff. If you don't take any actions within 72 hours to do something different, to learn something different and things like, you're just going to go back to where you were before you came here.
And now you're in debt because a lot of them don't have the cash to pay for it. Not even
Yeah.
necessarily just you. And I want to make sure I have a caveat here. Those listening or watching, you, especially those that know me, I'm not saying you shouldn't invest in yourself. And it's okay sometimes if you're at rock bottom and you have to go take something or hire a coach or whatever, and you have to put it on credit. If you have an action plan and you know what you're going to do, and you've researched that coach that they're a mentor and they're not a poser, that they're actually going to help you, that small investment can escalate to 10, 20, 100 times more in your life. So it's a good investment. But so many of you get caught up in the hype because they have these they have these webinars, or they have these video calls, or you see something in the past on TV, or you read a book, or you have a friend that's excited and they want to drag you along. You do no research. You just give your credit card out. right? And
Yeah.
this is your life. Purposeful living is making conscious, logical choices. So do the research before you hire anybody. I don't care what it is, even if it's somebody to paint your
Absolutely.
house. Paint your house, do some renos. Because I hear the complaints all the time from all spectrums of people, and usually it always resolves. It comes back to the fact they got that feel good effect. Their emotions took over. There was not any logic. Obviously, all decisions end up in emotionally driven, but if you don't have logic before you get to that point, you're going to make a poor decision more times than not, and then you're going to be a person that spirals. And I hate to get into this, but it's true. Those people that take that stuff and, like you said, they have that feel good, and then if 72 hours later it's gone, they see their credit card bill for me, and all of a sudden, for me, when I talk to them and I coach them on the lifestyle side of it, they're getting into addictions, or they're already in addictions and they stop temporarily, and now they're even magnifying it, trying to find something to mask the hurt. And
Yes.
then their
Yes.
associations of life, the people they associate with are the same as them, and they just spiral into that rabbit hole. And I'm telling you, if you're listening or watching, you don't have to be that way.
Yeah.
Just put in a little
Yeah.
bit of effort. If you want to invest some money and you don't have the cash, you got to use credit. That is good debt. There's a difference between good debt and bad debt. I teach you about
Depending
that
on how
too.
you use it, yes. Because one of the things, like a couple things of what you're talking about, and that's a great idea. Like looking to get to know that person, see what they do, see the impact they have, the testimonials, all that stuff, and everything, and go through that. But here's two things that were really important to me, and still are. I have a guarantee with every client I work with. Because if somebody gives me money and I'm bringing them change and they don't get it, then I need to somehow do something to rectify that, or I wouldn't feel good about what I'm doing, and I probably wouldn't even still be doing it. That's one thing, is as a person standing behind what they do. And the other way I do that is, people could work with me for less, for a whole year, for less than what they pay for to go to a workshop, or to go to a live event type of a thing like that for a whole year, and really get that change. And the other way that I back that up is, I have the way I work with people is I have skin in the game right with them. So that it's not that we have a once a week call and stuff like that, and we just go through this gamut of things, but like, I have skin in the game. It's like we partner, not that I take a percentage of their business, but it's like we partner with each other in their journey. And that's why I am so excited about what I do, because I'm able to do that. And as I'm partnering with people and stuff, you're building that lifelong bond and things like that. But they got somebody right, excuse me, right there supporting them as they're going through it and stuff. So those are things that, like, because none of the programs I went through had that, and you talked about Life's Lessons, which is a book I wrote, but because none of those programs had that, I thought, well, how can I stand out differently? And those are the ways I stand out differently.
And that's, and I appreciate you sharing that, because those listening or watching, what Joseph is saying is it's okay to research, it's okay to question. One of the things I find too is that people don't ask the right questions. So if you're unsure and you have somebody you trust, have conversations with them and say, this is, and speak it out loud. Sometimes speaking it out loud, you'll answer your own questions. The other person doesn't even need to say anything. We can answer our own questions, sometimes just hearing what we're saying. But there is so many people out there that are great. There's far more, unfortunately, because of the advent of social media and the internet over the last 20 years, that are posers, that are, don't be hiring somebody because they're standing beside a Ferrari or Lamborghini that they found in a parking lot, took some shots of it, or they rented one.
Right.
Don't do it based on the visualization of what you see or what they say. Look for the proof. Look for the
And
tangible
it,
proof, like what Joseph's saying. He puts the
yeah.
skin in the game. And if anybody reputable, I've done this to other people, you should be able to ask that person, hey, let me talk to some of your, I want to talk to some of your bigger clients, because if I'm going to put my 2 feet in, I just want to hear what they have to say. Right. Or even better, research and find out, they might have it on their website. Call these people yourself, do it off the cuff. Like, people say, well, that's a lot of work. Well, how valuable is you living a purposeful life, and the cost involved in doing that? How valuable is that to you?
Right. Yeah, and the other thing too is you talked about that, about getting to know the person. I will not sign somebody up the first conversation I have with them,
Me either.
because we get to know each other, things like that and stuff like that, and then I set up another call with them, and then we get into the more the core depth of everything and stuff, and walk through everything and stuff. But that first call is just for them to get to know me, and for me to get to know the person that is interested in, and talk a little bit. And it's not a sales call at all. It's just a what's going on, and this is you, this is me, and things like that, just so we get to know each other. And I won't sign somebody up for coaching off of that call,
That's perfect.
because from my standpoint, I only work with, I say 12. Sometimes I'll go to 15 clients at a time. And that's it. And the reason I do that is they have my personal number. So if one of my clients runs into something, I don't want them to wait till the next scheduled call to reach out to me. I want them to have access to me like a partner that they can reach out to, and I can help them right then and get them the most out of the program as possible. And two of my driving forces of my excitement, my passion, my heart, and all this into doing this, Dwight, is one, my parents were such great people, and they did every year, took a week off and took us up north in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, camping and stuff like that. And my dad would take us fishing when he could and hunting. But, they were really good people, but they didn't have these tools available back then like they do, like, what I have now. And then the other thing is those missed events, and I told you about my son. There's some other ones that we just can never get back. We can never experience those. Once the opportunity to experience them is gone, it's gone. We don't get to go back to it again, and redo it or somehow and
Well,
stuff. So
and you look at those, Joseph, that have like my dad. He, we didn't have any of that social media. I'm growing up, in the late 70s, early 80s, growing up, and my mom would take the odd picture, and he can't. My mom can talk about stuff that happened with us kids, that he has to live that journey through what she's sharing, or an old picture. Back then, people didn't have smartphones, so you'd have maybe 1-2 pictures if you were lucky of an event.
yeah.
And you can't live the journey of life through other people's lenses. It's almost impossible. Yes, you can read a book which talks about something, if it's nonfiction, about what happened in, let's say, the Holocaust, or what happened in this. You can read about history. You'll never truly experience it if you aren't part of that journey. Not that you'd want to be part of that journey. Hopefully it doesn't come across the right way. People need to literally live the journey right now, work as hard as you're working, and you're talking about being vested in that person, but don't give up your journey of life and all those little things that you can capture. And when you're hanging
Yes.
out with people, right? So I like the fact how you talked about the fact that you literally have skin in the game. A lot of coaches, you're right. It's like, okay, this is our scheduled call Tuesday at 2 o'clock till 4 o'clock or whatever it is. See you next month. Right? That is not conducive to growth with a person,
No, it's not.
because then they sit and go, oh my goodness, why didn't I bring that up in the call? It's 24 hours later, and now I got to wait 2 weeks, 30 days, or whatever. So good for
Even a
you for
week.
investing that time. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Even
a day can be too much, and they can spiral out of
you're
control.
right. Yeah,
Right?
you're right. And one of the things is, and this is part of the problem here is that conditioning is that you got to work in massive actions, exhaustive efforts, do everything you can now so that you're in a secure place later on. But most people never achieve that secure place later on. So they carry the children are being raised, and all this stuff happening that's such like the real gifts of life that are passed over because of that, building it, working my tail off now, killing myself now so that I can enjoy it later. Or people that have these desires and they want to grow things and see it bigger and everything else, but they're like, I don't want to trade off my life to do that. And so they just don't achieve those things they want to achieve,
Yeah,
and both of
you got
those
to
are
balance.
opposite
You got to
sides
have
of
a
the.
balance. You got to be able
You
to
do.
invest. Yeah, but biggest thing is one of the things I was going to talk about, might as well talk about now,
Yeah.
is balance of life. I
Yeah.
personally, people will say, well, coaches will say, well, you have to have a healthy balance of all these different aspects, and some will have 3 areas, some will have 5, no matter what it is. And I tell people, well, good luck trying to balance and make these all equal. You're going to have some that are going to have more
Oh,
energy than
it's like
others.
this.
Yes, thank you. That's exactly it. For those listening, he was going like a roller coaster, right? And at the end of the day, it is possible to have, see, for me, I don't know how you look at this. For me, I have to have core values that I live by. That's how I keep myself in check. Does it work 100% of the time? Absolutely not. But it's better than most of the population utilize. So those core values keep me within my faith, my family, and work. I have 3 core values, and then there's subsets of those core values, which I won't get into
Mhm.
on this call. But at the end of the day, I have to have a certain lifestyle presenting in all 3 of those areas, and that's how I don't miss those special things that are going on, and I enjoy the journey, and not just of my family. Everybody will think that I'm talking about that journey of helping that client out, and the joy and excitement as you see their stress dripping off their face and leaving them, and their body relaxing, because now all of a sudden they have hope. They may not even have everything fixed yet. They're just starting on the journey, but I'm enjoying that. Like you said, I'm with them, that journey.
Yeah.
And I like how you talk about that. You're with them. You got skin in the game. That's the perfect way to put it. But I know for myself, to have a balance, I need core values. What do you use yourself to keep yourself personally engaged and
Core
balanced?
values, like, like in the SMT method, it's developing a dynamic vision. There's road mapping tools to take through that and everything. And it's not about the strategy. It's about what's it look like? Where do you want to be? What's that look like? But then I do take that through the value, our values, and make sure it aligns with it and everything else and stuff like that. So yeah, that's really important. I lived a long time outside of my values, just trying to make money,
Been there. Yeah.
fighting the struggle. I was struggling to not struggle in a sense, And so yeah. So with that, and I'll tell you, once I started learning these, before I ever put it together into the SMT method or knew there was going to be a name or anything else for it and stuff, in corporate America, when I was still building territories, I told you I went from like killing myself 3 to 5,000 miles a week is a lot, doing it years at a time, and that was decade, or almost. And then once I started applying these things and started seeing things open up, I started having more balance. I started being able to coach my son's hockey team. I started being able to do things like that while I was getting greater results for my efforts in business. And then that applies to relationships, because you have more time to nurture those relationships and build them and be in them and things like that, rather than being gone all the time. So yeah, that's absolutely, values have to be. I mean, without values, we're just wandering around, really.
Well, absolutely. And but how many of the population live like I talk about all the time, live on a hamster wheel? They go to work, go home, go paid. They get paid. They get on the hamster wheel in the morning. They get off it at night. They come home. They've got work stresses. They got financial stresses. They got personal, emotional, and mental stresses with the family, and they literally, it breaks apart marriages, it breaks apart friendships, it breaks apart so many different things, and people's health fails because your health is directly tied to your emotional and mental state. It's scary, really, the people that in society, majority of them, and how they literally live a helpless life, and I call it a life of quiet desperation. They're
That's
quietly not, they're not saying much, but they're living in desperation from the moment they
Yes.
go to bed till they get up. And
And
then they
that's
let's
when
start
people
it all
start
over again.
using that's when people start using alcohol, gambling, porn, whatever it is, to kind of step aside from that. And I agree with you fully. That's a great way to say that too. I Yeah, yeah, that's a great way to say that.
But if you want to share, if you want to, because this can obviously have, I prepare everything, but I don't, the best conversations are ones that just flow. And we talked about the
Yes.
values, core values, and you talked about values and how it fits into the SMT. You want to talk about that more now? Like, what is the SMT method, and what does
Yeah.
it do for people? What are this? You share whatever you want about it, to whatever level or depth, if
Yeah,
you
yeah,
wouldn't
yeah.
mind,
No,
please.
I'd love to. Yeah. So the SMT method, there's two programs. There's a 12-week program, and then there's a 6-month program. And the first 12-week program is geared to get the vision. We come right out of the gate developing the vision, which means that we start tapping into that conditioning. When I have somebody that came to me at they were 13-year high in business, doing 7.5 million a year in revenue, and all they wanted to do was get to $10 million. And they could see themselves doing that and everything else. So I helped them shift that out to $12 million a year. In doing that, we started bumping up against that conditioning. As we started doing that, and then what we do once we have the vision and we go through our values and all that stuff, make sure it aligns and everything, and then we start taking actions. We develop systems of accelerating habits, things like that we're doing things that we enjoy doing. And I'll explain why that's important. When I was in corporate America, if I had to be in the office for 2 nights in a row when I was a VP after 5 p.m., I was fed up. I was angry. I felt resentment. All this stuff and everything else. And it was hard. It felt hard to me all the time. There's times here, I have my office here right around the corner is a studio, so I do my recordings and stuff. There's times I'll do all my stuff during the day, go home, eat, whatever and stuff, come back here at like 9 o'clock at night, and I'll start recording. And there's times I'll go till 3 o'clock in the morning. And when I get done, I can't go to sleep because I'm so wired up. I'm so excited and on fire and stuff like that and everything. That time that went by there, it didn't seem like work. It wasn't hard. It was just enjoyable. When we get into the flow of doing what we want to do, when we get into the flow, we're living our desires, everything changes at that point. Because people that are living like that, they have ample time for family, ample time for freedom, for exercise, for like all the different things, and so like one of the things I told you about the hang gliding and stuff, but the other thing is I play probably 12 to 15 hours of pickleball every week. I love it. I work out every week. I spend time with family and friends every week. And I still get to do these things that I'm so passionate about doing, here, and it like carries into all areas. But one of the things you said when you talked about the time constraints and stuff like that is or the people doing the same thing, the hamster wheel rather, is you said that, and I'll go into more detail about SMT, but you said that, and that I love this quote by Wallace Wattles. He says, if you are not consciously choosing to be rich, excellent, and healthy, then you're unconsciously choosing to be poor, mediocre, and unhealthy. And so that means we have to put some conscious effort into what we want, right? In order to, because otherwise people go into jobs and they can't stand them and they go week after week, year after year, over and over and over and over until hopefully they enjoy some retirement. But they couldn't stand doing any of that stuff. Like I felt a long time in corporate America, but they just keep going there almost in the like unconscious mode, just doing what you hate doing. When we start sparking into what it is we really desire, what we really want to experience in the works we do and the, other areas of life, all of a sudden we start opening that up and we start seeing that coming to fruition. There's always enough time for everything we want to do.
No, you're living a purposeful life, which is exactly what I coach and help people, because people don't understand what purpose is even. And then what purposeful life, what do you mean? Well, there's different avenues and different actions within your life that hopefully we can help you with, and then you're going to live a purposeful life. You're going to be able to do, like you said, you're doing pickleball, you're seeing family, you're working and staying in the studio because it's not work, it's a passion. Passion and purpose are tied and intertwined with one another. And if you don't have a passion, then you regret and resent, and you're thinking, oh, I should be at this, yet I'm sitting here. Right. And I'm not saying it's easy. Some people that are listening or watching, I know it's tough, depending on the career or job you're in, or position you're in. Maybe it's just you can't see the light. You can't see the trees for the forest. But I'm telling you, I've dealt with, and I bet you Joseph has seen the most difficult circumstances in our own personal lives, which we've, Joseph mentioned, and then in our work lives, that it starts at a baby step. It starts at something as small as just taking some action to change the 6 inches between your ears and getting tied into a good mentor, somebody that's going to mentor you and not make you feel bad because you're in a shitty position.
And it can start as small as a 15-minute conversation. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? To start turning
Yes.
those gears and stuff like that. So the first part of the SMT, like I said, is 12 weeks. It's to identify that conditioning, start shifting that conditioning. People start seeing some result changes in their, like their business or whatever it is and stuff like that. If it's somebody who wants to start business, we get that up and going in that phase. If it's somebody in a business, we start scaling some. But then once we get done with that, now we got all the tools. We got to know how we've done some shifting and things like that. We might not be experts, but we've experienced it some. So we've bought it, I mean? So now the second phase is a 6-month program, and that's all about rapid scaling. So I told you about that realtor that I started working with. Within 12 calendar months of working with me, her business went from 7.5, she surpassed 12 million and went just above $22 million, and has been maintaining that for like 7.5 or going 7 to 8 years now of that. Also with that, Dwight, that same year she experienced that growth was the only year of her adult life that she took 5 weeks of vacation. So when I say that about achieving it and having more balance as we do it, it's possible. And she's just one. I could tell you story after story after story after story of people who have achieved similar to what she has, and still had open free time and things like that. Part of the conditioning within us will tell us there's no way you can go from 7.5 to $22 million in 12 months. It's impossible. And that's somebody I would not be able to help. Because if they believe, like when I talk to people, I say, this program produces unrealistic results. If people stand by their conditioning and going, yeah, that's not possible because that's what their beliefs tell them, they'll never experience that. Now, I'll have some people that'll say, I would love to experience that, but I can't even believe it right now. That's somebody I can help. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely, it makes sense. At the end of the day, those that are listening to the show, you have to start somewhere. That's basically what it all boils down to. And yes, you could tell more stories of somebody going from 7 to 22 million. And those that are listening are thinking to themselves, well, I can't even imagine making $1 more an hour at my job, or I can't even
Yeah.
imagine I'm doing 10,000 in sales a month as an entrepreneur or business owner. I can't imagine being at 100,000 a month. We have to get out of our own way. We are our own worst enemy.
That's the
That saying
only
is
thing
so
blocking
truth,
us,
right?
Dwight.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
The
I'm sorry. That's the
subconscious.
only thing blocking us is this.
That 6 inches between our ears, man. And people
Yep.
laugh at me when
Yes.
I say that. You say that all the time. You need to work on your
It's
six
true.
inches between your ears. Well, guess what? We aren't in a society today, we aren't raised in a way to be conducive. Our school systems don't raise us to be entrepreneurs or leaders. They don't raise us to be even a person that's a career driven person. You don't have to be an entrepreneur. You have a career and you want to scale it up. They don't teach us to be good. They teach us to be automaton workers. Go to work, go home, get paid. They teach us to be on that
Robots.
hamster wheel because the smart ones are the ones that are feeding off the rest, doing all the work, the worker bees, right? There's one king, one queen, whatever. In a circumstance where there's somebody at the top is looking down, they're just trickling enough down to make sure that the organization doesn't fall apart. You're a worker bee,
Yes.
right? And I'm
Yes.
not saying that's bad, but if you want more to life, you got to start today, like
Yeah.
15 minutes, like you said,
Yep.
right? Pick
Yep.
that
And then
good book
yeah,
up,
and then just
right?
just to conclude the SMT thing, I know
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
spread it out here, but it's
That's
been great.
okay.
But
No, it's
but
awesome.
then after we go through the 12-week and the 6 month, then we do another 12 weeks as part of it. That's just ongoing. Now you've got the
Mm.
tools, you've grown, you're at that level, a higher level than maybe even you expected and stuff like that. And now you still get the support so we can work together for another 3 months. And then even after that, I do like masterminds. It's low investment and stuff that people can just to continue that growth like that.
Well,
So
some people, and I'm not trying to be harsh because I belong to different masterminds. And some of the people in these masterminds are way above me. Some of them are below where I'm at. Some of them are at the same level. But a
Yes.
mastermind can be a great circumstance for you just to have a conversation and throw it out there. Even the moderator of the or the people putting on these masterminds sometimes don't talk. We're helping one another out because you don't even know it all, Joseph. Maybe
Yes.
somebody in one of your groups has an insight, not to say that you're not intelligent, but has an insight that can explain it differently or connect with that person asking the question better than you. Yes, you may be able to. So some of these masterminds that belong to the moderator will say, you know what, I have nothing to add. That was
Yeah.
perfect. Or other times I'll say, you know what, I like what Dwight has to say. I just thought of something when he was saying that, and I was thinking about your question. It triggered this, you know what I mean? And that's
I do.
conversation. All of a sudden, our brain, everything starts flowing, and we feel so much
Yeah.
more connected, and we feel satisfied. When I get off those calls, I'm like, yeah, I feel
Yeah.
I feel a sense of accomplishment. If you're not getting that, for those listening, and you're in a mastermind, you never feel accomplished, go to a different one. You
Yeah.
should feel
And
some
you're
sort of
right. And
satisfaction.
yeah. And being in something like that with like-minded people, so that's why, like, I'll take one mastermind just for salespeople. I'll take one for business owners because they relate to each other. And that's exactly the purpose of it, is you start building off of where you are right now for everybody in the mastermind.
Yeah, absolutely. So you and I are definitely on the same page. One of the things I wanted to ask you about the SMT that I wrote down here,
Mhm.
when you initially started it, did you receive a lot of skepticism from people, or were they people that were, were they negative? Did you have support? Did you have people say, well, that's never going to work? Did you ever have, or did you have somebody that was a great supporter of you that mentored you through this, or
I
was it
had a
just all a
mentor.
school of hard knocks?
Yeah, I had a mentor, and I still work with one today. You call him a coach, mentor. But yeah, I still work with him today because, like, I'm getting ready to launch an institute to certify other coaches in the SMT programs so I can have a bigger impact now and even after I'm gone, to leave the legacy of my works. So,
Wow.
and I've never done that before. So I'm running into things I have no idea, and what, and so I here's the thing. So many of us are taught to be, I'll use the analogy of John Wayne. We got to be John Wayne. We got to figure it out. We got to know what to do and this and that and everything. But even he was not John Wayne when he wasn't on camera. So we're modeled this and conditioned that we got to be this way. And it's the hardest avenue there is. When there's help available that can get us there quicker, you can, even when you talk about investment and stuff like that, you can save so much money overall instead of struggling all these years, years and years to try to figure it out on your own, to opening up to receive the help to get you there quicker. So yeah, I didn't receive much negative stuff with it and stuff. I mean, not everybody I've talked to fits the program or wants it and things like that and stuff. But yeah, I didn't experience like but I also didn't take it wide media when I started doing it. Like I have the things behind me of top business coach and featured in USA News and things like that and stuff. I didn't ever have a need for that. And these things just kind of happen. But so when I started this 10 to 11, 12 years ago, when it started coming together to be the SMT method, it wasn't like wide, media and things like that and stuff. It was just as I came across people to coach, people
No,
referring people to
and
me, things like that.
you were attracting people that were in the same mindset of wanting to grow, and
Yes.
you probably had people, I don't know if you did or not, have people that fall off in your life as well that weren't necessarily like the associations you had when you were the sales VP
Yeah.
versus you doing this business. Those level of people might still be in your life, but they're not same people that are climbing with you. So you don't necessarily, they're not attracted to you anymore. You're not attracted to them. Right?
Now
You moved
that
on.
I ran into more upsetting things about when I left corporate America than I did with the SMT programs, because I had a group of friends that I built through being in corporate America and things like that, in different states, back in Michigan and everywhere and stuff. And they could not absorb or understand even why I would do that when I have this in the position I had with the company car, all the benefits and da 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 and stuff. They're like, man, you've arrived. Like, look at your life. And I'm going, yeah, I'm using alcohol to cope with this life I'm living, you know?
Yeah, I
So,
do.
so with things like that, so I did have some people fall off based on that, but with the SMT method, it, like I said, it just the way it grew from attraction. And that's
Yeah,
how I
you
love it have
attract
grown
different
this.
people, like-minded
Yeah.
people, right?
Yes.
You can
Yes.
attract somebody that's like-minded and beyond broke, but they're struggling and working to change and develop and move forward. And
Yes.
not everybody in your life that is going to be like-minded is going to be wealthy or going to be somebody
Right.
that's got a giant business. Sometimes they're just on their journey and they're moving forward, and you run into them at an event, or they reach out to you, and all of a sudden I can connect with them. And it's not comparing, you know, your net worth statement. You're not doing that. You're comparing
No,
ideologies and conversation and moral structure, and you know what I mean. That's the way
exactly. Yeah.
I,
Moral
I've
structure. I love that.
right. I have a lot of people that I connect to right away. And it
Yeah.
doesn't, we don't talk about, oh, I got more than you, or you got more than me, or I don't sit and make them feel bad when we break down their budget and their balance, you know, their net
Yeah.
worth. It's, I want to connect to them here. I want to connect in their heart. I want to have that conversation where I give them, when they walk away, the ability that I can't wait to see or talk to Dwight again, whether it's a
Yeah.
video call or face to face.
Yeah.
Give them a little bit of hope, because guess what? I know you do too. I feed off that. I feed off that, and I feel glad too. They leave the call, or they walk out of, you know, I walk out of their house, or they, if they're at my house for a conversation. I love it. Like, I just had
Yeah.
one here recently with a guy that did not believe that he could get anywhere in life because he's on his second marriage and this and that. And you know what?
Yeah.
I said, "You never ever have self-doubt that you can move forward in life. We just need to work with your mind monsters. Some of them are memory, or pardon me, money. Some of them are physical monsters. Some of them
Yeah.
are subconscious monsters that come from our learned behavior at childhood. We just need to, you just finally have to have somebody to talk to that's going to
Yeah.
listen, not judge you, and give you what you need based on how you can receive it to help you get onto the climb again, instead of that camped life that so many people live.
Yes. And one of the things you probably do the same thing. You seem like is, you know, even the 15-minute call when I'm getting it at the end of the call, whether we go forward to the next, whether we're done, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It's really important to me that when I talk to people in that call, that I've served them somehow. And so I always ask them, do you feel like I served you today? And they'll go, oh yeah, good. Okay. Then I'd like to talk to you again sometime. So feel free to reach out.
Yeah, I say something like, it all depends how the call is, but I'll look at them
Yeah.
after I've had a call or that first meeting, and I'll say to them, you know, my goal for this is always to ensure that I leave you better off than when you first
Love it.
started talking to me. So I want to know if there's something that I missed. Maybe I didn't catch what you were saying. Is there something that you would like to conclude this with, that I could help you feel even better? Right.
I
And if
love
you're
that,
not,
Dwight.
if you're not feeling better right now, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Either or. How can I help you? One last conversation before we, you know, walk away from one another. Or did I, did I miss something? Right. I want to make sure that you leave this feeling better than when you started,
Yeah.
because that's my whole
Yeah.
goal, even if we never talk again. And
Yeah.
sometimes they don't talk to me again, but there has to be closure for you and I in a
Yeah.
conversation.
I like that. I like that
Right.
idea.
Right.
Yeah.
I want closure, because some people are more far gone than you and I can help them with in their lives.
Yeah.
We don't know the damage that's within their programming that's feeding their conscious daily lives. And we have to be partially empathetic too, right? We have to be an empath and just accept and that people sometimes are beyond our capabilities, and not take it personal too. I don't know if you're that way too. At one time I used to take it personal when when I couldn't help
Oh
somebody,
yeah. When I
and
first, yeah.
I knew I could help them, but I just
Yeah.
couldn't get through to them. And I
Yeah.
had to give that, for me, I give it up to God, and I just go, Lord, I'm grateful for the ability to be able to communicate with people. I know I can't help everybody, you know, hopefully that person gets help. Hopefully they get some guidance, because not everybody's going to connect with me, just like you talk about the
Yes.
15-minute or the hour call or whatever it is. Not everybody's going to connect with my crazy. All right.
Yeah,
It's my crazy and I own it.
absolutely. Yeah. That connection. Yeah. And I did the same thing early on. Um, yeah. Some people, like, when like, you could just feel their pain, you're talking to them in depth and they're crying about their current situation and stuff like that and everything. And then the investment is one of the things that really shuts it down. And early on, I would literally tell people, you tell me what you can afford and we'll do it for that. And then I'd find out, like, people would say a number and they wouldn't really get as much out of the program early on. And what I found is, if we're not invested in something, we don't really get that much out of it.
That's skin in the game, right?
It
They have
is.
to,
Yeah.
sometimes that skin in the game can be a boo-boo that it hurts, right?
Yeah.
That just,
Yeah.
that it's got to be painful. And I look at, for what certain coaches, mentors, whatever, like, I use the word interchangeable. It's just somebody that's supporting you, being that cheerleader, that person that's keeping you on track in your roadmap of life.
Yes.
I look at people that devalue their time, and people will say, what do you charge an hour for this support? And I'll tell them, wow. I'll say, well, do you know that dollar value that I charge? What you're going to get is what you put into it and how much you're going to accept me giving back to you. Some person, I'm going to charge the same to a person that's going to use up this amount of time as I'm going to charge to you that only takes 10 hours of my time. You had that
Yeah.
same opportunity, but I can't devalue the fact of what I've had to invest, sacrifice, and put in to get where
Yeah.
I'm at. That has to be worth something. And yes, I get it. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. But I'll tell you, if you listen and we work together, you'll get 10-fold, 20-fold back. And it's not always about money. When I say 10-fold, 20-fold back, it's that mental conditioning. That's
Yes.
feeling, it's going to bed at
It's
night,
all
not
of
in
it.
quiet desperation. It's having hope and faith that on the faith aspect, you're giving me trust, and you have faith that I'm going to deliver what I promised I will.
Mhm.
And we're going to create that chemistry, that bond. I've had clients, 21 years I've been doing this in my finance and my life coaching and stuff, with clients from individuals to businesses that are friends of mine, that I've been invited to their birthday parties, to weddings, to this, you know what I mean? It's just, that's to
Yeah.
me a joyous
Yeah.
existence in my career, in my life, right? My
Yeah.
business.
Yep. Yep. And you talked about that. Uh, you know, when I started doing, like, it's been a 3-decade journey to get to this point, to have the SMT, things like that and stuff. I tried to shortcut that, but the avenues I picked didn't work. And when I did it myself, it got even worse. So that's the big thing, is, the voice we hear in our head, the fear, the stress, the doubt, all that stuff, that's all coming from that subconscious conditioning.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
I even tell people, if we're talking about this and you're going, well, that's not really possible. Okay, that's your conditioning coming through your brain. But I can show you how it is possible.
Oh, you're
You know,
coming through their brain because they're trying to, their brain thinks it's protecting them because of that
yeah,
conditioning,
it is.
right?
You're absolutely right. And that's what's happening in that. But it's protecting based on the conditioning. So when we shift the conditioning, somebody who's in lack, struggle, things like that and stuff, all of a sudden they can start opening up and they start seeing the other side being possible. That's the reason why, when somebody's developing a dynamic vision, I'll help them stretch that to almost where it's a little scary, the thought of achieving that. Because I
Well,
want them to get a little scary, because it bumps into that conditioning.
and I like that. I like how you put that, because if it's not a little scary, and back to that skin in the game, they're going to fall back into that. It's no different than when I help people. We put a roadmap in place, we goal set, I budget with them, we work on all their different monsters in their life, we put a program in place, and then they don't stay in touch with me.
Yeah.
Right. And all of a sudden, 6 months, 9 months, a year later, 2 years later, sometimes I'll reach out to them sporadically. They don't have time for me. We get together and everything's falling apart. And
Yep.
sometimes they're worse because they only they took little partial things and they made their circumstances worse because they didn't follow the roadmap. They didn't follow what was going to needed to happen in order to
Yeah.
cement and help them through the hurdles, that up and down, like you talk about the
Yes.
roller coaster. They didn't do that. I live in the valley of despair. It still hits me once in a while. And I have things that I do that I've learned that help me get back on the climb. And I don't stay in that
Yes.
valley of despair too long in that roller coaster. But so many people
Yeah.
just discount it. So then all of a sudden I'm sitting with them and their lives even worse, or they haven't done anything. And then you have to ask yourself, how are these people serious enough? And I have those tough conversations. And
And
sometimes I don't help them again. I just
yeah.
can't. You
Yeah. Well,
have to
there's two
disconnect.
ways, and there's two ways you can look at those downfalls like that. One is upsetting, disappointment, usually shame, things like that and stuff, worthiness, all that stuff ties to it. Or you can look at it and go, okay, so I know I need to talk to this guy every week in order to get difference. And me as a mentor or coach to somebody, I can help them see that importance and get to the other side of going, I'm glad that happened for you because it taught you this and got to the life lesson. And now we start moving from there, and them like, I mean, that's life. I've talked to people who had a great business idea for 13 years and would not step into it because a few years, years before that, 15, 18 years ago, they started a car wash and they fancied it up, everything else and stuff like that. And then within 8, 9 months, they closed it because there was no traffic. And so when I met him, we were talking about that, and he said, "Yeah, that's like I got this idea, but I don't even like to ponder it anymore because of what happened there." I go, "Well, can you see where what happened back then with the car wash was to teach you?" And he goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "Well, what didn't you look at then that you know now you should?" Well, the due diligence, right? Whatever it is, for a car wash is one thing, for another. And I go, okay, so you learn the lesson of the importance of doing your due diligence before you start something. So with what you're talking about doing, what if we start building some excitement there and we figure out what that due diligence is, and you do that and let that guide you. If it doesn't work out to where it's going to be, you're in the wrong spot, or you're this or that or something. And the guy's a multimillionaire now based on launching that idea.
Which
But
is
we will use
phenomenal.
our failures to hold us down. And that's all coming from that conditioning.
Oh, absolutely. People fail. I'll tell them, you know what? You tripped, you fell on your knee, you got a boo-boo, put a band-aid on, get back up, start walking forward. How many people do you know in your life, or I know in our life, or the listeners know in their lives, that they're that close to success and the success is around the corner and they can't see around the corner, and they quit just before they were
The
gonna
miracle happens.
the miracle happens. And a lot of times, we don't have time to talk about it today, but a lot of times it's associations. They're continuing to associate with people that aren't necessarily uplifting.
Part of
And
it.
it can be family, it can be external sources. Maybe it can be people they associate with at church, or a organization, a body of people they hang out with for extracurricular stuff. And and you're right, it could be part of it, but at the end of the day, we just need to understand that life can have. You look at Colonel Sanders, right? 1,100 financial institutions before he was able to start KFC, and he was in his 60s. You look at what Dave Thomas went through with Wendy's. You look at what Ray Kroc went through, and never giving up, to create what the McDonald's we know today, that he took,
Right.
took over from McDonald Brothers. But every one of those has the same theme. They didn't give up through failure. They used that failure as a stepping stone to their next
Yeah.
success.
Look,
Right?
look at Edison and the light bulb.
Yes.
10,000 times he tried it. And people will say, "Well, what do you think of all your failures?" He goes, "No, I just figured out what I was supposed to do by trying out what I wasn't supposed to do, And that's exactly
Mhm.
what it is. But here's where it makes a difference. And here's where I love what I do. I love having this conversation with you, Dwight, is because we give people an avenue to have somebody, mentor, coach, to work with through these things. So instead of it being a failure and an upset, and now I shut the door on it, to help learn from that and grow forward. And those things we can't typically do on our own because we're coming from the place of that conditioning. So it's automatic. It's like, just living on like unconsciously, really, we automatically do that. One of the ways I tell people when they say I don't comprehend it is I say, okay, when you brush your teeth tomorrow morning or tonight, I want you to go 10 strokes, 10 strokes, 10 strokes, and then be done. And I want you to start here, and I want you to work across. And I want you to come back here, and I want you to work across. And people can't do it because they're conditioned to do it how they do it. I had somebody do that, a client do that one time that didn't understand it. And I said, when you wash your hair tomorrow, wet, and then lather, like count 1, 2, 3, and at 12 stop. He called me up later the next day, and he goes, "You son of a," and he goes, "I couldn't do it." I go, "Yeah, that's because you're conditioning." And that's what happens when we go it alone. That conditioning is so strong, it will pull us back into the conditioning. So having somebody there at your side who's not judgmental and who's really there for, your gain, and to help you learn those lessons and understand, so it doesn't become a failure that stops you, but it becomes a lesson that launches you forward. It can make all the difference in how we experience life.
Oh, absolutely. I like how I smile about the conditioning thing, because I've
Yeah.
said that to people too. And I will do it intentionally myself because we're creatures of habit. And to say we're not, we'd be doing a disservice to everybody listening to us. Like, honestly, I start shaving, like, for those watching, yes, I have a goatee, but I shave, right? And if always start on the same side, I'll
Yep.
intentionally want to break my conditioning and shave off. And it's uncomfortable. Or
Yes.
I'll do a different process in the shower. And I learned all this stuff back in, oh man, 20 some years ago from a guy I used to follow a lot by the name of Blair Singer. And he talks
Mm-hmm.
about, he's an amazing guy, American, great guy. And he talked about that too, breaking the
Yeah.
conditioning. He says, I
Yeah.
want you guys all to go home before tomorrow, second day of this weekend. And I want you, the guys, shave this way. Girls, if you do start this side makeup, do this side first and see it. And we're going to talk about it tomorrow. And he talked about it, and it was uncomfortable as hell. I did not
I
like
shave.
it.
I keep it kind of thin and stuff, but I shave probably 3 times a week, and I always start over here and I go around, and every time it looks good. I decide exactly what you said is I would go, I'm gonna do it backwards, saying I hacked it. I
It's
almost shaved everything off because I
oh
hacked it so bad.
yeah, I've done that. And it's that pattern for those listening and watching, because we're getting to the end of the show here, interrupting your patterns of that hamster wheel of what you're used to living. It sounds really uncomfortable, but it's really satisfying if you can get to that point of understanding what it's going to do for you. It's going to open up your thought processes and your ability to absorb information, to connect with people. And it's not going to happen overnight. I won't tell you that it'll happen overnight. This is a journey. This is a process, whether it's 12 weeks, the initial program that Joseph offers, to the 6 months, to another 12 weeks. The whole answer there is time, right? Time is your friend, time is your enemy, but you have to choose to use your time to the best of your ability to succeed with whatever Joseph and I have been talking about. So I hope you value yourself enough to take that next step, right? Reach out to Joseph, even myself. We're totally different coaches. We are mentors, whatever you want to call us. I'm not saying my system or what I utilize is better than Joseph's. Find somebody that you resonate with and that has a program that's been proven time and time again. And that's where you're going to win the life game, not even the money game, because it's life. I know people that are 50, 60 million dollars in their pockets, and they're miserable, absolutely miserable, because they have no balance. They've created no real connections. Everything's based on living a life of fear, which we don't have time. Unfortunately, I was going to get into that conversation with you too. We have to wrap up the show here because you got to get going, and so do I. But we might have to have another discussion, my friend,
I've
because
been
this has
thinking
been
that since the
phenomenal.
first 2 minutes we were on the phone.
Yeah, yeah, this has been amazing. I really appreciate you. So I'm gonna do what I do to everybody. Joseph, if you had to give our listeners one last closing message, what would you tell them in regards to giving a heck and never giving up?
Yeah. Take some time, find the calm, and start coming up with ideas, like visualizing whatever you want to call it, but start coming up with thoughts even of what you truly desire to experience in your life.
That's awesome.
And just start there. Just start opening the doorway.
Pen to paper.
Yes.
Pen to paper.
Yep.
Journaling. Yep. If you don't like the word journaling, just take a piece of paper and split it in half. On one side, put 50 things I want, and on the other side, put 50 things I don't want in my life that I have that are currently going on. Just to make your mind wake up to the fact that you aren't dead. You actually want things in life.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And this lifetime goes by and we never get to repeat a single day.
Never, right? Time is our friend and our enemy. Enjoy every single moment, right? Even just toward listening to the end of this, when you get off of this, I hope you feel better about yourself. I hope you realize that you have the seeds of greatness and you just got to water them. And they will grow. And there's people out there that can be that fertilizer for your seeds to grow. So any last closing comments before I wrap up?
No, I said one other thing is well, two other quick things. One is, the other thing I use as motivation is getting in that place of understanding the absolute best years of my life are ahead of me. It doesn't matter age. It doesn't matter any, financial situation, anything like that. But the best years of your life are ahead of you. And then here's the last thing I want to share, Dwight, because this great conversation, and I really enjoyed this. And if you're listening to this and you're getting something out of it, like share this with people who need to hear it. Like share, Dwight's podcast with other people and stuff, and help get that message out there. Even in that, I promise you'll get a good feeling coming back towards you, or good things coming towards you by doing so. Like, this is awesome conversation.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. One of the things I did forget to ask, I skipped over. What's the best way they can reach you, brother? Just your website, or
anybody can go to a coachwithjoey.com.
Sweet.
It's just coachwithjoey.com, and schedule a 15-minute conversation with me. I'm sure in something you'll put the website and stuff like that.
Oh, I do. Yeah, my show. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll take care of that.
Those that are new. Yeah, no, those that are new to the show, go to giveaheck.com. At the top, you'll see where it says podcast. Click on it. It'll open up a page where you'll see the picture of Joseph. You'll see the show notes below it, as well as a timeline where it literally will show different subjects or different things that we talked about. If you heard something and you want to hear it again, you can look at that timeline and go, oh, this was at 45 minutes. Right. So you have that ability as well. And I'll have in the website his social media links so that you can reach out to Joseph. And obviously, if you have any questions or you want a connection to Joseph, some of you need that, reach out to me. I'll connect you. I'll be the facilitator to connect you directly to Joseph if you want that introduction. Don't let fear be your crippling thing in your life, your Achilles heel, right? Fear can be beaten. Absolutely. But we'll have that for another podcast conversation. Thanks so much, Joseph, for being on Give a Heck. I appreciate your time and sharing some of your experiences so that others too can learn it is never too late to give a heck. Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together, let us all strive to give a heck.